Hey witches, this question is in reference to our coven wanting to know if it's Wiccan based. And I wanted to make a video kind of explaining my own history of learning and my stance on Wicca as a way of kind of explaining the community too. First thing I want to say is that our coven accepts witches and pagans and spiritual folks. So some of the people in there, I don't think at first used the term witch or identified as witch. They might have said they were spiritual or things like that. But then as they've been in there, they've grown accustomed and have found the empowerment of using the term witch. And so really open. And as a witch, I've been a witch a long time, and I've been in a lot of pagan circles, pagan groups that, you know, you get kind of exposed to different kinds of philosophies. And that's really what I wanted in our coven, because we have a lot of commonalities, but it's okay if everyone does something different, and then we can kind of come together and share. But I just wanted to talk about just kind of what an observation that I've seen, right? So I've been a witch since the 90s, and I feel that most of us happen to kind of start the same way, right? We all started off with like a book either by Scott Cunningham, by Raymond Buckland, or Silver Ravenwolf, right? And those are pretty Wiccan based because at that time, you know, who was publishing and who was being published was pretty limited. And we are all limited to the bookstore that was near us, right? So it was kind of like what Borders would carry. I actually happened to have like a few occult bookstores near me, which was super cool. And so I was able to get like some dolphin books and some things that were harder to come by for people in other areas. And so a lot of us started off kind of the same way. And that way was a Wiccan way, right? A lot of the introduction books when we were growing up and becoming witches were Wiccan based. And there wasn't a lot of these terms. I have another video about this, like all the different types of witches. You know, people would say they were a kitchen witch or a green witch or a pagan or just a Wiccan or I'm just a witch, right? It was kind of like Wicca was there and kind of intermingled with everything. And so I do recommend to a lot of people that start out to look at books based on Wicca because their structure, especially people that have come from a religion and they're looking for like more structure. And I think that it's kind of like when I used to teach poetry to students, I would say, we learn all the grammar, we learn all the rules, we get to poetry because we learned that stuff, we earned the right to break the rules, right? And so it's like having a foundation of Wicca or something more structured allows you to start to explore afterwards and kind of include more things, right? So things that we do maybe that are Wiccan is, you know, call on elements, celebrate the Sabbats. Certain witches in the group, you know, prefer the terms goddess and god. That's all what we consider kind of very Wiccan. I think when we think about witchcraft and the uprising of witchcraft, especially in the United States and Europe, it was based on European indigenous beliefs mixed in with some things that like the spiritualist movement and the Golden Dawn movement discovered about Egypt and other places. And then you also have, you know, some mixture of indigenous Native American and South American culture coming into a lot of times appropriated it, to be honest, right? And all of that kind of mixed in to create kind of like this Wiccan movement. And so a lot of times people in the 90s, or especially, were like, everyone was familiar with Wicca. And I myself called myself a Wiccan when I first started. And then I just decided, like, I don't really want to be part of like a religious, like the term witch, and kind of branched out from there. And so if you look at like our book list, where we read the Wicca Guide to Solitary Practitioner, but this summer we're going to be reading American Brujeria as our June-July book reading. So it's like I encourage the people in the group to expand, right? Like learn voodoo, learn brujeria, pursue what's interesting to you, and then share with us, right? I just took a deep dive into Italian-American folk magic because I'm Italian-American. It's like, you know, you can start wherever. So long story short, if you're Wiccan, you'll fit in. If you're not Wiccan, you'll also fit in, right? We're just accepting of all different paths.